What's up guys, welcome back to the VR. Episode 4 should be the last episode where you finally see some results out of this thing. So picking up where we were left off last episode, we are just getting this thing furthermore put together. First things first, give the air filter a big service, big clean out. We use a recharge kit to clean it and re-oil it, so we'll get onto that, make sure it's nice and clean. And we're just changing this oil and fixing up a few things while it cools down. Righto guys, so the IC7 is actually mounted, it is secured. I was going to paint those little L brackets and not leave them raw alley, but because of how freaking hard it was to actually get in there and secure it, I'm not touching it again. That's where it's staying. So it's secured in there and that's that. And I tell you what, it's not much fun to try and get in and out, but anyway, that'll do for now. Like I was saying, if this car does come back here later on for more upgrades, such as nitrous, intake, whatever, we might talk to the owner about potentially actually just putting the fuel sender into the actual dash and just calibrating it into the dash and actually replacing the cluster with the dash and wiring in the lights and stuff. But at the moment, it's a bit more wiring than we're willing to take on at the moment. We're just too busy. But if he finds he doesn't really need the cluster for any reason or whatever, I'm pretty sure Mako Motorsports make an infill panel where you can swap it out and the IC7 actually mounts in there properly, and we'll wire it all in and stuff at a later date. But at least that's sorted for now. Righto boys and girls, as you can see, finally got the VR on the big rollers, see what this thing can pump out. We've got our knock sensor set up for our Plex knock monitor so that we can actually tune it to suit, see whether this thing's going to be knock limited or not. So we'll see what this thing can put out. Righto guys, so all's going quite well. So far so good. We are finding though at like full throttle pull, we're still seeing quite a bit of vacuum, which would normally lead to a restrictive intake setup. So what we've done for now, just to do a run just as an experiment, is to just eliminate the whole airbox intake setup out of the equation. So it's just intake straight into the throttle body at the moment. This will tell us whether this is a restriction or whether the actual throttle body setup is a restriction. I already am very well aware that the stock intake manifolds are quite restrictive, but it should still not be causing this sort of issue, seeing vacuum at wide open throttle from the manifold's perspective. But anyway, this quick little experiment should tell us something, a bit more data anyway. But so far so good. We're creeping up on that 250 horsepower, which is awesome, but obviously with all these ancillary things. If we do have a restriction in the manifold or intake or something somewhere, we're only going to get so far with it, which we already knew was going to be the case. But anyway, that's still a pretty good gain over what it was before, 25 horsepower. So we'll see how we go with a bit more tuning. Still a bit to go, but it's looking good, sounding good too. Righto guys, so that definitely helped. Taking that intake pipe off definitely helped. As you can see, picked up a couple of horsepower there, but most importantly, dropped a little bit of vacuum during the wide open throttle pull. It's still seeing a little bit there, which means that obviously the throttle body and the front of the manifold, the intake actually into the manifold body around that area is still restricting it somewhat, because it's still building vacuum in the manifold during wide open throttle, but at least it's helped. So anyway, that is obviously going to be pretty much the next thing that needs attention, which we were already very well aware of, but there's no point in tuning it with it off, because that's not how it's going to be run on the street. So put the intake back on and finish the tune with it on, but we know it's worth a few horsepower to actually get it off there. Righto, so we're just starting to get some very early hints of knock. Starting to look like we're getting to the limits of what this thing's going to do. What we're going to do is chuck some fresh fuel in it for starters, because first thing you do when you start seeing some knock is check your fueling. Now we don't know how long the fuel that's in this thing's been in there. We don't know how old it is, so we'll chuck some fresh fuel in it, see if that helps. See if we can get any more aggressive with it. Righto guys, so the fresh fuel didn't really make a lot of difference. I don't know if it'll pick it up on the camera, but there's like an audible ping that you can hear. It's at a bit of a strange time in the runs, and the Plex is not picking it up on the graph super obviously, and with how loud it seems to be that I can hear it audibly outside the car, I would think that the Plex should be picking that up real quick. So not super convinced that it's knock, but not willing to continue until we know better. The issue we have is that we don't have any good headphones here with us at the moment. And so we're relying on the Plex graphing at the moment to tell us what the noise is doing. So we're gonna wait until tomorrow. We're gonna bring some decent headphones back with us to actually listen to this thing properly. That way that we can determine whether it is in fact knock or whether it's something else. It's definitely coming from the engine bay area. I just don't know if it's something to do with the clutch fan or something else. It is a really weird sound, and the timing's not super aggressive.
It doesn't sound like it's knock as in like, you know, ting 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 ting. It's sort of one or two, like very well defined, very audible, just like ting ting.
So anyways, as you can see, we're around that 245, 250 at the moment. Rex pulled a fair bit of timing out chasing this noise, and that's another thing. Like, we've been pulling timing out, it's still doing it, so we'll wait until we know more. But we reckon it'll be around that 250 is where it's probably going to end up pulling up. Righto guys, back here this morning. We've done a little bit of analysis of the logs from yesterday, going over the timing, and a little bit of research and talking to a few other people, and we are pretty convinced that this thing's not aggressive enough to be that audible and loud. So at the very least, we still have the headphones here today to be able to actually listen in on it properly. But we'll continue going and see what the thing can do. But we're not super worried about it. See what the cold start's like this morning. Always hard doing tunes in summer in Queensland because cold start isn't even really that cold of a start. It's a pain, but anyway. So we just had to play around with the speedo as well to get it calibrated. We've got it fairly close. We're not going to bother getting it perfect at the moment because it hasn't even got his wheels on it. We'll wait until we get it off the dyno, we'll put his wheels on it and we'll go for a street drive and calibrate it properly. But it does work. It's going to work fine, so he doesn't need the GPS speedo, which saves him a few dollars there, which is awesome. Righto, boys and girls, that is it for the dyno. That's all it's going to do. That 250 horsepower with that intake in situ, everything there, that's all it wants to do. It's a super hot day today. Check what the ambient is at the moment. Yeah, 30 degrees ambient, 60% humidity. So, you know, it's freaking pretty warm today. But that's pretty much the difference there. Change this over to torque. But you can see pick up of around 10% for the majority of the rev range. From 3.5 onwards is pretty much 10% the whole way. So still a fairly decent gain considering all that really was done was the cam and obviously the tune. You know, it's not like we also did exhaust and intake and all that other stuff as well. We've proven that that intake is worth about 5 to 10 horsepower. And then obviously the throttle body assembly and all that, plus the actual intake manifold, I reckon this thing would be pretty easily go 270 plus with a new intake manifold setup with a new intake. So I think that'd probably be the next thing on the list of things to do. I reckon that's going to be, at the moment, the biggest thing holding it back. It's got plenty of exhaust at the moment for the power that it's making. So I reckon that intake is definitely going to be the next thing to look at. Anyway, it's been pretty cool to do something different. As I said at episode 1, these things sound just so sweet. They sound so good. They are one of the best sounding engines ever made, I've got to say. I really do like how they sound. So
they don't have any of that like
raspy,
kinny raspiness.
Yeah.
It just sounds tough.
They just sound good. They sound angry. Especially this thing with the Gilmer drive, with the bonnet shut and how angry it idles. You'd think it was like a blown, angry setup. It especially with the wheels that go on it. Like it looks like one too. So it's all pretty cool. It's been pretty cool to do something different. Anyway, that's it for the dyno, but still a bit to go. That bolt that snapped off in the balancer that we had to remove, we've got the replacement here, so we can actually put that in. So we'll get it off the dyno, chuck it on the hoist, fix that up, put his wheels back on it, just do a bit of a once-over check. There's a few cover panels that have to go underneath the car as well. We'll put them back on. And then with his wheels on it, we'll go for a bit of a street drive, make sure it's behaving on the street, calibrate the speedo for them wheels, and make sure that's all sweet. So we'll get into that now. Should also add that knowing that the intake and the intake manifold are the next restriction is not news to anybody, I don't think. I'm pretty sure basically all of us were pretty sure that that was going to be the next big restriction, and that's why we were looking to replace it when we did this package. That was the original plan, but like I said, we just can't get anything at the moment. It's so hard to get anything for anything at the moment, really. Like, obviously with something like this, your first go-to for an intake manifold for an Aussie 5 litre is going to be Edelbrock. And at the moment, anything Edelbrock is pretty much a write-off trying to get it from the States. It's just impossible. Anyway, small steps. It'll get it one day, and I'm looking forward to that day. But for now, it still sounds tough, looks tough. I like it. There you have it, guys. The thing sounds awesome, goes really well. It's funny, after doing LSs and VEs and VFs and stuff for so long, you start to look at 250 horsepower and sort of be like, oh, it's not really very much, but you forget how much lighter these older cars are. The thing actually feels quite quick. It feels really good. So anyway, drives nice, it's doing everything it should do. We have that speedo calibrated perfect. Just so happens that with these wheels, we confirmed it with the GPS on our phone, and yeah, the speedo is perfect. It reads about 2 Ks higher than it should at about 80 K an hour, but that's pretty much exactly what we'd want out of it. So that's awesome. The other thing we realized is that this dash will actually, it doesn't particularly need a gear indicator, but it will actually calculate what gear you're in based on RPM versus vehicle speed. So we're just kind of looking at how we can calibrate that to make sure it works. But we should be able to get it so that he has an actual gear indicator on the dash as well, that it will calculate based on RPM versus vehicle speed. So that's pretty cool. Not so good in an auto with a big stall or something, a lot more complicated, but in something like a 5-speed manual, super easy to sort out once you calibrate it. So that's pretty much it. All I got to do now is just tidy up where that ECU is now that we're not putting the GPS speed sensor in. We'll tidy up that in the kick panel and mount all that back up and get it all tidy. But apart from that, that's the VR all sorted, all done. Tough looking, tough sounding car. Looking forward to hopefully seeing it back here in the future for intake manifold and nitrous. I reckon that'd pretty much do this thing. You know, between intake manifold and a little shot of nitrous, a 70 shot or something, we're looking at over 300 horsepower. And at that sort of power, you're starting to really push the friendship of just a T5, I think, from what I know of them. So, depending on how you drive, obviously, but that'd be cool. Anyway, maybe one day. Thanks for watching anyway, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this little series. Something a little bit different to the ordinary. It's been fun. It's been a nice little learning curve. And we'll see you on the next video. Peace out. See you. Bye.